a big step in anybody's life is coming out of prison or coming out of jail, getting back into society, getting a job, being accepted back in the community.
Right, right. That must be.
Yes,
and of
it
course,
is.
the ability over the years,
Yep.
during your prison ministry, you've clearly seen a lot of people get out, and that transition has got to be one that takes a little bit of time there.
We have our follow-up program, aftercare we call it. You know, for example, we had a young lady she was a drug addict, and we got her into a program, you know, after we did our counseling and counseling with her family and so on. And we had a call, it was yesterday, she's into the second stage of the program, doing well.
Right.
And they go through, Greg, when they go through the detox, they climb the walls. They feel like they're going to die, you know.
Right.
And then they get through this and they go into the next program. We put them into the next program, you know. And so it's extremely gratifying to see an individual come out of that and go into the next program, and then we follow up with that, and then after that we have the aftercare where we talk with them and counsel with them back into society.
Now, Jim, if I had a heroin problem and my wife wanted to come in to talk to you, would she be able to come in clearly confidentially? But are you going to be able to help if I'm not interested in coming in? If only my wife or my family members or my children were willing to come in to talk to you about it? Are you really going to be able to make a difference if I'm not interested in doing anything?
Quite often, we do have an individual come in by themselves. Usually, you know, a husband and wife are both very much involved and affected. We don't have to counsel with each of them, but we need to have that relationship to where we can talk with all of the family members.
Yes,
you know? If you've got a problem where you've got, for example, I've got an individual out of state and one that is in state here. They're going through a separation.
Right.
And it's extremely difficult to bring a couple back together unless they can both sit down at the table. I can't do counseling with one and counseling with the other at separate times and bring them back together.
Right, right.
So if that is involved now, that's a different situation than getting somebody into a drug rehab program.
Right. You shared with us earlier this morning before we started filming that you'd been with a family recently, and you were driving home that point about it's not just the husband and wife or the boyfriend girlfriend. It is much more than that. Share with viewers the significance. That was very profound. Share with viewers about how it's not just the
one
boy,
individual,
the man woman.
That's a very good point, Greg. I sat down. I says, I just want to. Now these are the people that I've talked with.
Right.
There's about 10 families immediately involved. You know, the girl, the boy, each of their families, the mothers and daddies on either side, the brothers and sisters. You had about 10 families that were immediately involved, and all these families had several people in the family. That did not include any of their friends or any of their close associates or their job. So you've got a lot of people involved when somebody's going through a trying problem of some kind with drugs or alcohol.
If I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict, my wife, her brothers and sisters, her parents, my two brothers, my parents, their wives, parents, everyone is familiar with their loved ones' drug problem. They're trying to help. And then, as you said, that doesn't even touch friends and family.
That's right.
Friends and business co-workers.
Powerful. It really is, Greg. It has so much effect on an individual's life. And there are people. Now, you know, I've got one working with me now who's a recovering alcoholic and doing such a tremendous job. And he knows the ramifications of the programs that you go to and, you know, all the troubles that you're involved with your family and everything. So it's beautiful what God is doing.
Let's talk about how donations flow into Christian Mission Outreach and where, let's say, if someone had $200 to give you, where are the greatest needs within Christian Mission Outreach, let's say, on today, on March 10th? Where would those dollars go if they were to make a donation today? Could they pinpoint where they wanted to go if they wanted to go to Thanksgiving baskets or the Road to Recovery? Or if they just said $200, you do with it as you want, or $500, where are those dollars going to go, Jim?
It's sort of like a church. You know, if they can specify, say, Road to Recovery, say, I want my money to go to Road to Recovery. Well, that's where it'll go.
Right.
To pay for expenditures that go into that particular program.
Right.
If they want to buy food, that's exactly where it'll go. If they want to give, like, for example, you go to a church and you say, well, I'm going to give a $5,000 gift to my church.
Right.
Well, sometimes you might specify, but otherwise you say, we're going to put it into the hands of these that are responsible for doing what they need to do with that money, you know, as stewards, good stewards of God. So, you know, for example, I had a company to give us 2 truckloads of clothing. New clothing.
2 truckloads.
2 truckloads.
Where
2
can
truckloads.
you store all that, Jim? You highlighted
We don't have much.
Tight location
Stack it up
over there.
high.
Yeah.
But anyway, I smiled at him because he was somebody that I knew. I smiled and said, okay, now, you give me 2 truckloads of clothing. How much are you going to give me to distribute this for? Everything, Greg, you know this, everything that happens, this television program costs money.
Don't say it, please. Remind me, Jim.
The Herald it costs money. Everything you do costs money.
To get it out.
If you pass out 2 truckloads of clothing, there's going to be an expense involved. You know, you got phones, you got offices, you've got heating, you've got all the expenditures that go with it. You know, so they can specify any particular area, and anybody who might have a problem with drugs or alcohol, they would say, "Hey, I'd like for you to talk with my son or my daughter, or I'd like to come and talk." Confidentiality. Call. Hey, I'd like to talk with Reverend Jim or Tony or one of the counselors there. Give us a call.
And Tony really beats the street for you. He's out constantly. I guess everyone, because there is that need. If someone gives you something, you've got to be able to distribute it. You've got to be able to get the baskets out. You've got to be able to get food out. You have to have funds to operate, and as you said, to keep the operation flowing. So you all need to be out, letting people know how great the needs are. You wouldn't be celebrating 25 years if you weren't doing a tremendous mission.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, Greg, big ones and little ones that have come and gone in 25 years. I thank the Lord that we're still there. Bills are still paid. We're still passing out food, and even if it's in the evening hours or whenever it may be, if somebody calls, a family that's in distress, hey, we're out of food, we don't have clothing for the kids or whatever. We deliver it to them. If they don't have transportation, we'll take it to them.
How did you meet the Lord in the first place, Jim? Where was that? At an early age? Was that when you could really begin thinking? I mean, was that while you were pummeling people? We talked a little bit about that, obviously. I mean, what was it that, how did you and God connect?
You know, it's a beautiful thing, Greg. I can remember when I was 7 years of age, I was in Sunday school. And I can remember I had an experience with the Lord, invited Christ to come into my life.
Really?
Now, you go through stages of where you're in service, you're in college, you do things. I might have not been in that perfect step with the Lord all my life, you know. The Bible says, for all have sinned to come short of the glory of God, except for Christ Jesus alone. So there's sin in each of our lives. But when I was, after I graduated from college and started teaching school, and I was still doing radio at night, you know.
Right, sure. You were on air,
Lord, and I, being in church, you know, and here I was. I had a little education. I learned to talk a little bit, and so I went into help the pastor in lay speaking. That's when I just got out of college, and then I spoke in various churches and in our church, and then went into full-time ministry. You know, been doing it for many years now.
Yeah, Jim. Well, clearly, in the Road to Recovery, a 4-step program there. We just got a couple of minutes. Intervention, evaluation, placement, and then aftercare. Each of those steps, that early step, as we talked about, you know, in the intervention side, you have to have a real desire. If I still have a cocaine problem, my wife or girlfriend or whomever coming in to talk to you is not going to make much headway until I say, I really need help.
That's exactly right, Greg. They got to be to that point in their life where they say, I had a client come in this past week. When we sat down with our conference, we talked for maybe 2 hours, you know, and conferring. And he felt like, well, hey, I don't need to go to that. I'm not that hard. And then his call back and said, hey, I need the program.
Right. You know? He or she can tell, whoever's sitting there can tell quickly that love abounds in the office, but also clearly that you all can make a difference.
It can make a difference in their life. Put a family back together. And bring it, you know, there's nothing harder than to see a young man, a young woman split with kids that are involved, all their families.
Any example over the last many years that Road Recovery has been going on, or through your mission outreach here, Jim, that really stands out in your mind? Have you had any singular story that really stands out? Any families that were brought back together thanks to Christian Mission Outreach?
I definitely so.
Probably too many to mention.
Too many to mention. But in this particular area here, and a person that we'd worked with for many years, a number of years, who had problems and who had tried to get into different rehabilitation programs, you know, who just couldn't make it. But we never gave up on them. We continued to counsel. We continued to stand with them. Lost their wife for a period of time. Lost everything they had. We never gave up on them. We continued to counsel with them until finally we saw them come back together. the person go through, get rehabilitated, they're living together, they have their family back together, there's happiness in the home, and they're living a good Christian life. I've seen it happen firsthand. But this is just one story.
Lastly, Jim, what makes you tick? What keeps you going and so focused on Christian mission outreach?
You know, Greg, I know 77 years comes and goes real fast, but and sometimes my days get long, and you wonder, hey man, I'm retired. But 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and you go home and you're tired, your body's tired. But to be able to help somebody, to feel like, my gosh, that one person that I helped yesterday, or that person that I helped the day before, and who were really down, boy, you feel like, hey, man, I mean, there's a gratification, a feeling deep down within your bosom, man, that you've done something good, and the next day you can't wait to get up to go help somebody else. There's something that is there that nothing else can give you.
That's great. Jim, sorry we've run out of time.
Hey,
thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you, Jim. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the co-founder and chief executive officer of Christian Mission Outreach, Jim McManus, coming up next. If he wanted to, he could stop. Why doesn't he just quit? I quit. Why can't she quit? She's just so weak. Ultimately, what you're trying to ask yourself is, what can I do? Whether it's you or a loved one that's impacted by alcohol addiction, drug addiction, there's something that can be done about that. There's a road to recovery. Christian Mission Outreach has stepped up to the plate in a big way. You can learn how to get involved either as a volunteer, as a donor, as a sponsor, or if you know somebody. Jim McManus was sitting here, Reverend Jim McManus, sharing with us how you can do it and how it can be done on a cost-free basis. Take the time to learn more about Christian Mission Outreach and all of its outreach services. Pick up the phone, 843-293-2411, 843-293-2411, or pop by the Christian Mission Outreach office there at 4563 Highway 17 Bypass South in Myrtle Beach, about a quarter mile south of the back gate of the Air Force Base. Take the time to learn more. Jim and his lovely wife, Jan, more than 25 years ago, making a commitment to make a difference in so many lives. They can be involved in your life, too. Take the time to learn more about Christian Mission Outreach. Jim, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Greg. My pleasure.